So President Trump was talking with Fox host Tucker Carlson, and the subject of homelessness came up. And of course, it was terrible. Let's take a look.
Very different from our cities.
Yep. Well, no, some of our cities.
Some of our cities. But New York City, San Francisco, Los Angeles, they've got a major problem with...
It's very sad.
With filth.
Very sad.
Why is that?
It's a phenomenon that started 2 years ago. It's disgraceful. I'm going to maybe, and I'm looking at it very seriously, we're doing some other things, as you probably noticed, like some of the very important things that we're doing now.
We're doing important things. Now, wait a minute here. So, now, look, he talks, again, about homelessness, right? And how, there's nobody going to the bathroom in the streets in Japan. Oh, maybe it's because they actually have a little bit more of a welfare state than we do here in the United States. Slightly more. I'm not entirely sure about that, let's be honest. I know that people work very, very hard in Japan, and they work a lot of hours. There's a lot of stress. There's a lot of job burnout. So that's not exactly the best model to look forward to, right? That said, what's going on here in America can be explained by a lot of different factors, right? None of which Donald Trump actually gets correct in any of this. But anyway, so now here's the thing. If that's true, if this homelessness phenomenon only started about 2 years ago, well, you've been president for about 3 years, almost 4 years, right? Wouldn't that be partly your fault? I mean, again, it happened on your watch. Now, we know that's not at all true because homelessness has been a problem for, I think, as long as human history. Let's be honest with you. We've got a big problem with people not being able to afford homes in big cities, gentrification, redlining, stagnant wages, tech companies that continue to push people further out, rising rents. But he doesn't talk anything about that. No. You know what's funny is that you think this would be something the federal government could actually try to do something about. Like, I don't know, maybe the president could talk about this and maybe push Congress to do some action. If only the president of the United States was here and maybe he could actually do something about this issue. Now, he continues by, of course, blaming, well, you'll see.
You can't have what's happening where police officers are getting sick just by walking the beat. I mean, they're getting actually very sick. Where people are getting sick, where the people living there are living in hell too, although some of them have mental problems where they don't even know they're living that way. In fact, perhaps they like living that way. They can't do that. We cannot ruin our cities. And this is the liberal establishment. This is what I'm fighting. I don't know if they're afraid of votes. I don't know if they really believe that this should be taking place. But it's a terrible thing that's taking place. And we may be, I had a situation when I first became president. We had certain areas of Washington, D.C. where that was starting to happen. And I ended it very quickly. I said, you can't do that. When we have leaders of the world coming in to see the president of the United States and they're riding down a highway, they can't be looking at that. We're looking at it very seriously. We may intercede. We may do something to get that whole thing cleaned up. It's inappropriate.
All right. So, look. So there's kind of a lot to unpack there. For one, he says, look, mental illness, right? That some people, that they want to be on the street. They don't even know. Well, maybe that's something that the government could do something about. Again, you're the president of the United States. Maybe you could talk about, I don't know, mental health. Instead, in reality, what the Trump administration did is they actually cut funding for mental health. And not only that, but they also wanted to cut funding to help homeless people. So, come on, man. But he says, oh, no, we can't have what's happening. Well, you know what? I actually agree. We can't have what's happening. But, of course, the focus on that when he talked about the police is that, well, the police are getting sick walking down the street. And later on in the interview, he also said, well, we got to find something to do with the people. What do you do with the people? I don't know. You give them homes, moron. I mean, come on. I actually care about the people living in the street. He does not. Nobody should have to live in the street. I believe housing is a human right. And unless you guarantee housing as a human right, you will always have homeless people. And so you know what happened? Utah had the same problem, right? So what did Utah do? They gave homeless people houses. And guess what? There were less homeless people. Who would have thought? Wow, I can't believe it. Who knew if you would give a homeless people a home that they would not be homeless anymore? It worked. It worked. And actually a lot of those people, along with job training and mental health, mental health care, they ended up being more productive citizens. So it actually did work. And it actually ends up being cheaper for the government to provide people for homes than actually continue to lock them up in prisons, which is what they do right now. So turns out when you invest in people, they might have a chance of becoming successful and then giving back. I know, weird. Now, Tucker Carlson, that's another thing, right? So Tucker Carlson, he's been talking a lot about poverty. He's been talking a lot about taxing corporations, which is weird, going against the Koch brothers. You might think that, okay, look, maybe Tucker Carlson, maybe he cares. Maybe he's actually one of the few people on the right that's actually going to talk about this issue, talk about homelessness and income disparity and things like that. No, he doesn't. He didn't care about that. No, this is another way to attack liberals for an issue that, of course, shouldn't be ideological. Homelessness is not an ideological issue. There are homeless liberals, homeless conservatives, homeless veterans. There's a big issue. And for Trump, of course, he doesn't care about the homeless, right? The thing is like, oh, you can't see the homeless. You just can't have that. We just don't need to see that. It's an image problem for him. It's not the fact that, man, we got to help these people. The homeless people everywhere, we got to help them. We got to get them into homes and get them into jobs and things like that so they can pick up their lives, man. Get off, the people that are dealing with addiction, helping them be able to put their lives together. And a home makes a big, big difference. You got to give them a home to have a job and all that stuff. But for Trump, again, it's not about helping them. It's about they make me look bad. When the world leaders come to visit, I look bad because there are homeless people here. He also claimed that when he had first became president, that the homeless population in Washington, D.C., because of him, had dropped. When in reality, of course, it is at a 13-year low. And homelessness in the United States, for the most part, has remained very steady. So he continues to lie and lie and lie. He can't stop himself. He can't help himself with the constant lying and fabrications, and of course, trying to make himself look good. He doesn't actually care about this issue at all. I mean, and unfortunately, it's not just Republicans. It's also Democrats that don't care as much about the homeless too. They only see the homeless in very simple ways. In reality, of course, there's a lot of different homeless people. A lot of them are veterans, even. So, hey, Donald Trump, you want to do something about homelessness? You want to intervene, as you say? Well, why don't you find all the homeless veterans and give them a home? Guarantee housing as a human right if you have served in the U.S. military. That shouldn't be a hard thing to do. Think about the reaction even from the right wing, right? Are you going to be against something that gives people who have served in the United States military and have found themselves homeless to guarantee them a house, somewhere to live? Maybe not a house, but like an apartment or just somewhere to live, right? Which would end up actually being cheaper than having them stay out in the streets. You might even get a lot of conservatives on board if you are pro-military. Now, of course, they're not going to do that because the first question will be from hardcore right-wingers is, how are you going to pay for that? Well, we did give about $1.5 trillion to corporations. Maybe you can rein some of that back in. Or use some of the bloated defense budget to maybe pay for those homes for the veterans. But, of course, they're not going to do anything like that. Of course. Why? Because he doesn't care. He doesn't care. He doesn't care at all. Come on, man. Trump literally despises the poor. And we know that because he's talked about it before. He considers them losers because they don't have money. He doesn't want poor people working in the White House. He said that before. And he doesn't even want poor people on the golf course. That's who Donald Trump is. And Tucker Carlson is another rich, entitled kid. I don't think he's serious at all. I don't think he's actually, I think what he's doing is he's pandering to an audience. There is a need. There's a desire, I think, on the right to address some of these issues. Why? Because they're finally affecting white people. They're finally affecting white people. And Tucker Carlson is a white nationalist. And so he's coming up and he's saying, oh, these are issues: income and wealth inequality, income and wealth disparity, corporations screwing over regular working people. Well, that's affecting white people now. I didn't care when it affected black people. Don't care about them. But white people, well, now I've got to look out for them because, well, that's how I can get my audience. He pretends to care for the ratings. That's who Tucker Carlson is. And so Tucker Carlson and Donald Trump, they're just two peas in a twisted pod. Hey guys, hopefully you enjoyed that free video. Now I'm going to have to ask you a favor. Between the demonetization and the YouTube algorithm messing around with view counts, etc., we're having a hard time adjusting to the new YouTube reality, which is where you guys come in. See, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/TYTNation, set up to help us rely on you guys, the viewers, instead of big corporate ads. Look, you know the show. You know I'm not in favor of big corporations anyway. So help us transition away from relying on the ad model to pay the bills and sign up to be a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. That goes a long way to help us keep the lights on. And you guys will know that you're supporting independent, progressive media.